Hi, this is Mrs. Frangiosa, here with a wordless book called The Shadow. It's written by Donna Diamond. This book has no words in it, which means that you have to use inferencing in order to figure out what's going on. Inferencing is taking what you already know, plus the evidence in the passage, in this case pictures, and using those two details to understand what is happening in the story. I'm going to read the inside part of this book so that you understand what the author's intent was. It says, "It's an ordinary afternoon. A child comes home, heads upstairs, and sprawls on the floor to do some drawing under the watchful eyes of a pair of favorite dolls. But there's another character in this wordless story, the shadow, and unnoticed at first, then slowly creeping into her field of view. It's a terrifying sight. Will the girl cower, or will she take on this shadow and tell it who's boss? And where will the shadow go from there? With mesmerizing intensity, this dreamlike story tells an unflinching tale about recognizing and staring down one's fears, if only for a time." The Shadow by Donna Diamond. And I can see there is the girl and she's walking and behind her is a shadow, but this shadow looks a little bit different, doesn't it? I know that my shadow follows me everywhere I go, but my shadow does not have eyes. And I can see this girl looks a little bit sad, and this shadow is looking a little bit creepy. I can see that the girl is coloring, and it looks like she's got an animal that she's drawing, maybe some hands near the child's face. She doesn't look too happy to me. And I can see her looking at her pictures. I can also see outside her window. Looks a little bit gloomy. Maybe it's the end of the day. Maybe it's just dark outside. But it looks like her shadow is also looking at her work. When she notices that shadow, it's really scary to her. That would be scary to me too. I know sometimes when I see my shadow, or if I see the shadow of somebody else, sometimes it gives me pause and I stop and I think, am I in a good place? Am I in a safe place? For her right now, it doesn't look like she feels very safe. And I can infer that she's scared, and I can tell that because she's hiding behind her chair. And if somebody is hiding, that means that they are not ready to face whatever is coming next. If I were that girl, I'd feel pretty darn scared, because it looks to me like the shadow is getting bigger and bigger, and it's confusing her and overwhelming her. I can tell by her eyes. But something is changing in her body now. Instead of being scared, she is crossing her arms. And I know that when I cross my arms, I'm usually a little bit mad or angry, and I'm trying to make my point. Now the shadow's looking a little bit scared itself. And she's really telling that shadow what to do. She's telling him to leave her alone, or at least that's what I imagine. And she turns on a light. That strikes me as being a really smart thing to do, because when you turn on a light, what gets smaller or almost goes away? Your shadow. And now it looks like she's feeling pretty proud of herself. And she's able to look at her pictures again. She's got her dolls with her. And she's even able to have a good night's sleep. So she really conquered her fear, which is awesome. But her shadow is still under the bed. That's an interesting idea to me, because it sounds to me like the author wants us to remember that even though we are scared sometimes, we can conquer that fear. Does it mean it won't come back? Of course not, but it does remind us that we are in control, at least for a little bit. Donna Diamond has illustrated numerous children's books for children. About the shadow, she says, "This work is an exploration of the fundamental emotions of fear, melancholy, and the search for safety. These paintings Visit shadowy places that represent the dark, untamed parts of our thoughts. There is a value in visiting these mysterious places. They are a source of power, imagination, and deep personal identity. I have tried to offer a portrait of the vulnerable child in all of us, experiencing fears and facing personal shadows. Through the use of metaphor, the work gives the illusion of safety on a journey in dark places. Donna lives in New York City. So she's got kind of an interesting idea there. In a time when things are a little bit scary or unknown, I think it's important to remember that you can push that shadow out of the way and give yourself a little bit of light. Happy reading.